The Ohio State Buckeyes are coming off a national championship, and they didn't have anybody enter the portal in the spring. What's next for Ohio State, and can they make another national title run?
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal news. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in. And today, all things Ohio State Buckeyes, the defending national champs. What's going on with them in terms of their spring roster? Who'd they gain? Who'd they lose? Jeremiah Smith. Does Ryan Day finally get the monkey off his back and beat Michigan at the end of this next season? We got a lot of topics, but it starts with the portal. And to help me do that, that guy, Jay Stevens. How you doing, sir? Locked On Buckeyes. I know it's been fun for you saying that you guys are national champs, but football never ends. It's 365. And even before the show, you were still mad because they lost to Michigan last year. So everything is in order. Everything is in order.
You didn't have to bring that up, Brian, but you did. I'm glad to be back here with you. And yes, I am an Ohio State guy. I am still bitter, very bitter, honestly, that for the past 4 years, Ohio State has lost to their rival. And this year they can do it. They can beat Michigan. But I'm not here to pick that game right now on this show. I'm not the guy for that.
All right, brother. We'll get to the Michigan stuff in the middle of the show. I have a specific question you and I were talking about that will probably spark a little of debate. First question. Do you think that after spring, there are any positions that Ohio State is, by their level, in any way, shape, or form, vulnerable?
Yes, I absolutely do. The first one, and this is one we talked about a lot on Locked On Buckeyes, is a defensive tackle. Because outside of Caden McDonald and Edric Houston, you don't know what you're getting from the other guys in that position. Now, those two guys are inexperienced. They were key backups a year ago during the national championship winning season. But you want to go into the next year with some confidence with the guys on the interior. On defense, you don't have that. Now, you may have confidence because of practice, things they've done there, watching the film during the spring. You don't have game film to analyze and say, oh, this is what this guy has done on the field, so we can project what to do in the fall based off of the game, this game last year or that game last year. This is a name you'll know, Brian, and Jason Moore. He is a guy that I believe he will be good, but I have a hard time projecting what he'll be this year because he's barely played. They've been trying to wait on him to put it all together. He's put on that weight like guys do when they come to Ohio State, but he's just one of those backups that I believe will be good at some point. I just don't know if it'll be against Texas week 1, if he'll pop against Penn State middle of the season. I don't know when it's going to happen, when he'll put it all together on the field.
How much do you think Jason weighs now, legitimately? I don't like looking at those depth chart things. I know how that garbage goes.
I almost said 295, but I want to say more 305 probably.
Okay, so he's put on a bunch of weight then. Okay.
It's weird because it's hard to look at. I used to be able to look at a guy and say, well, this is what the roster says, but my eyeballs tell me you weigh 300 or 305 or 280. It's hard. It's very hard to do that. So I want to err on the lighter side of 295. But he's playing inside. I thought he was going to be a defensive end in college, but Larry Johnson put him on the inside, just like Edric Houston, and they had to put on a lot of weight to be good down there in the middle.
They wanted athletes first to get up the field and make penetration. I get it, and obviously Larry's figured it out for a long time. I'll trust his judgment. But that was one of the positions I was looking at the other day, and I wondered if you were going to bring it up. The other one that I was curious about is running back. You lose two guys to the draft. And even if you have a ton of talent, I mean, what they lose, 90% of their production, and pretty much every pass rep, one of those two is in for pass protection. Like, that's always my biggest concern when you change running backs. Who's going to block? Because if your quarterback gets hurt, your season goes in the toilet. That's just how that works. Do you feel good about running back? I mean, I know they're not going to be the same as what they had last year, but where do you feel that position's at?
Ohio State fans are going to hate this, but I'm very similar with running back like I am at D tackle. You're not just losing those two guys in Judkins and Henderson. Both got drafted, I believe, in the second round. but you only have one guy that's experienced, only one. And so you mentioned pass protection. We've talked about it a lot on shows that we've done where, as a running back, one big reason why true freshmen don't play a lot at running back is because you can't pass protect. It's so hard to do, which is why it took Travion Henderson 4 years to figure it out and to do it consistently. And Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, said Travion Henderson was one of the best pass protecting running backs he's ever seen. And so that was year 4 for Henderson. CJ Donaldson transferred from West Virginia, who I think is going to be a dude, an absolute monster this year. He's the only experienced running back. He's shaved about 18 pounds, maybe down to 20 pounds now, 20 pounds lighter than when he got there on campus. So his body is healthier, had a lower leg injury, lower body injury. But I don't know what to expect. James Peoples, a good running back. I don't know what to expect of him in pass pro. Bo Jackson, Isaiah West, Turbo Rogers, you know those guys. We talked about them. But they're true freshmen. And I have no faith at all, Brian. I'm not trying to be a negative guy. I have no faith in a true freshman running back going out there on 3rd and 8 and having to pass protect and know, well, the blitz is coming here pre-snap. Oh, wait, they're looping around going to the other side, and I got to quickly get on my horse, go to the other side because the protection is sliding a little bit different to go get that guy that's coming around the edge that nobody's going to block. I don't have faith in a true freshman to do that. So I am very concerned about the running back. The weird thing is, I don't think that Carlos Lockwood is going to go to the portal to get a running back in the spring. And that makes me nervous. Because if we go into the season with C.J. Donaldson and Jay Peoples as the top 2 backs, you're telling me there's only going to be one guy there on 3rd and long, and that's Donaldson. Because at least early in the season, I don't know if Ryan Day will trust a second-year running back to be there on key downs, key passing downs to protect his quarterback. I got a hard time believing that's going to happen.
So you think they still need to get somebody, even if it's just a backup, maybe an H-back, maybe a fullback combo running back that can help? That's one of the ways you win in the portal. I try to explain this to people. It's sexy to talk about, well, Jeremiah Smith or whatever, but you have to have the complementary pieces because football is the ultimate team game. Ohio State, they had 7 out of the first 45 picks in the draft this year. Where were a lot of those guys? Linemen, guys that you and I talk about a little bit, but it's still not the same as talking about Jeremiah. It's just not.
Right. No.
But they wouldn't have got it. Like, if they didn't have Donovan Jackson towards the end, would they have even made the game against Notre Dame? No, they'd have lost.
No.
That's what I mean. You're always like one player away. So finding those guys that are role players, H-back, offensive guard, anything is key. And they had guys that like switch positions during the year, do different roles because they had some injuries on the O-line. That is team football. So where do they need to add if you're going to just take one guy? Because the portal ended, but you can still sign guys. You can only take one guy. What spot would it be?
D tackle. And I paused like that on purpose because I've been pounding the table that Ohio State needs to get a seasoned quarterback to just be a veteran voice in that room. I'm not saying go out there and get a quarterback that's going to play because we both believe Sands going to start. But you have 3 inexperienced quarterbacks in that room between Sand, Keen Holmes, and Tavius St. Clair. All 3 are really talented, but none of them have gone through any type of dirty work in a game. No type of grind in a season. You can get a quarterback out there that's been around 3 or 4 years that's trying to chase and try to get a ring. They can come in, be at Ohio State, take classes, but also be a veteran voice. And I've been pounding the table for that, and I'm a little concerned that Ryan Day hasn't done that. And I get ruffling the feathers of the quarterbacks that are in the quarterback battle, but you have the conversation with them before you even bring a guy in. Hey, we might bring him in. He's not coming in to start. He's just coming in to be a veteran piece. I think D tackle's one where you need to get a guy to be in rotation, but I think quarterback, they need a veteran voice in that room really, really bad.
I was surprised they didn't get an FCS kid or a kid from Harvard,
right?
Something like that. And I don't know the reasoning. I'm trying to argue with Ohio State's logic in the passing game is probably not the greatest thing, but this one seems a little unusual to me. But it is what it is. Now that they've got another year into it, and it just seems like there's just a reloading process. What would you say is the definition of Ohio State's wide receiver situation? Obviously, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith. I mean, that's just like the beginning. They have so many guys they can play, but they don't play a lot. Is there going to be 4 or 5 guys to play this year? Or are they going to get it down to 3? And that's still going to be pretty much it.
I want to lean towards 4 or 5 because I have a hard time believing that with Smith, Ennis, and Tate being so good, that Brian Hartline is going to leave Mylan Graham and Bryson Rogers on the sidelines. I have a hard time believing that. I'm not saying they're going to play a lot, but they should play every single game. They should. I mean, Mylan Graham should be returning kickoffs and punts, at least do it that much. But get those guys out there, get them reps. But also, you get those guys out there. You talk about the offensive line, Brian. I never call for a guy to get injured or request a guy to get hurt. I never want that. But it's a part of the game. Let's just say the unfortunate happens and one of your top 3 receivers goes down, and you have to lean on Graham or Rogers in a key moment. Well, you could get this some early run early in the season to help them get their feet under them and get up to game speed. So if the unfortunate happens and one of your top 3 receivers goes down, the backup or the replacement is experienced and is ready to go for that moment. So I do think you'll get 4 or 5 because these guys are really good. The definition is great, not just great, but all-around receiver, an all-around receiving group. Those 5, Jeremiah Smith can do whatever you want him to do. But Tate and Ennis, and then you bring in Graham and Rogers, put those 4 together in a lab, you can draft up whatever you want to do. Because they're not great in everything, but Rogers' route running is really, really good. Mylan Graham has speed and burst that is going to pop off the screen when you watch him play. Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis, they're on the verge of being first-round picks. So while these guys in Graham and Rogers are guys that are backups right now, I think you put all 5 of those guys in there, including Jeremiah Smith, into a lab. Brian Hartline can literally draw up whatever he wants and just have a field day calling plays.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty hard not to be excited if you're a Buckeye fan. I think they'll be just as good if you, like you said, they plan for it. Because, I mean, at some point, they're going to have a big injury. One of these years, running back is going to go down, receiver, whatever, and change the dynamic. But they don't rotate much at receiver. They got all those Florida guys up there at Ohio State that I knew from the high school ranks. So they got some players. Who is the biggest portal sleeper for Ohio State? A guy that may not catch the normal Ohio State fans' attention. Anybody come to mind?
Portal sleeper. You got me on this one. No, not really. Ethan Ananwa, left tackle from Rice.
Oh.
Now, it's hard to miss him when you watch him. I think he's up to like 345 pounds, about a 6'6" human being. So he's got size, got the height.
I'd say so.
Yeah. But you mentioned Donovan Jackson earlier. Josh Simmons, who was also a first-round pick, went to the Chiefs, a really good team. But you need to replace that position. Donovan Jackson had to go to left tackle because the backup left tackle also went down a year ago. So Donovan Jackson had to go out to left tackle from left guard. So you're losing, realistically, 3 left tackles from a year ago, putting Jackson in that conversation. Ryan Day was like a lot of us that covered the team, didn't have the faith in the other tackles on the team to replace that production from a year ago at left tackle. So you go out there, get a guy from Rice, get a guy that's a quality player that is probably going to be at worst a 3rd-round pick in the upcoming year because he's at Ohio State. He's going to raise his level of play. And Ethan Nanwa on the offensive line is going to be that force to protect whoever starts at Ohio State default. I'm going to say Sand. Some people might say Keenholz, but I just think it's going to be Julian. But yeah, that left tackle, that blind side is going to be protected by a really big human.
I don't doubt it. That's 345 is a big guy. When we come back, we're going to talk about that team up north and if there's any trends between Ohio State and Michigan based on the last couple of years. That's next here on this crossover edition of Locked On Buckeyes and Locked On the Portal. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
This episode is brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build, and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the All-Stars are the hard-working manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need. From aerospace to electrical to medical devices, Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain is easier. Managing logistics is easier. Responding to price changes is easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global vision, we'll equip you with the right tools to move forward. Think ahead and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hard-working minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier takes the lead. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com.
Your favorite subject, Jay, the team up north. I'm going to get you a shirt that says, I love the team up north.
That's a good one. That's funny. That's all I can do is laugh at that.
I mean, I might do that. I might wear one just for you sometime we're on the show, just for the heck of it. I don't even root for Michigan, but it's just fun. Anyway, do you think that in 23, when the Michigan won it, it immediately sparked the Ohio State boosters to say, we're going to go all in? Or do you think that took a while? And then secondarily, do you think since Ohio State did win it, they're going to try to outspend them to make sure Michigan doesn't get back?
The first one, I absolutely think the boosters were influenced by Michigan winning it 100%. But also, let's not forget what else happened. Oh, at that point in 2023, Ohio State lost 3 in a row. And after that third loss,
That's true.
They had to watch that team up north win the national championship, beat Alabama, beat Washington in the playoff. Now, luckily, after Michigan won the national championship, Ohio State got a commitment from Quinshon Judkins. So that's very key there for the team. But I think they were influenced. I definitely think they were influenced by them winning it. I think for this year, were they influenced to spend more? Was that the second question?
To stay ahead, if you will, because you know what it takes like to be on the wrong end, and then you got some success. How often do people handle losing something they like? Not very often.
No, so it's weird because I think the spending for this year is different from last year because you're not spending to keep guys that would have gone to the draft. I mean, think about it. Lathan Ransom, Denzel Burt, unfortunately fell by staying at Ohio State. He literally lost money going into the NFL. If he would have went to the NFL after his junior year, he would have made more money, would have been a higher draft pick. But his final year was really, really odd for him. I don't know if they're influenced to spend more money to stay up and to stay ahead of Michigan because of the players that they're trying to spend the money on. They're not demanding the high dollar. But if they are influenced to spend more money, it should be because Ryan Day's lost to Michigan 4 years in a row. And so that alone should be the one reason you should spend more money because you're still losing to them. The only time Ryan Day's beat Michigan was with Urban Meyer's guys. I'm going to say it every single time we have this conversation because it was right after Urban Meyer retired. That first year Ryan Day was the head coach. Ryan Day had all of Urban's recruits starting, and you know how Urban Meyer recruited guys that had that dog in them and that had that nasty in them. Well, they had that, and they demolished Michigan in 2019. No game in 2020, 2021 through 2024. Michigan's won every game. Even Michigan's worst team beat Ohio State's best team. So that alone should be the motivator to spend more money. But who are you spending the money on? Are you going to pay your guys top dollar to beat out a guy that's going to USC to say, oh, we're paying him the most? Is he worth that money? I don't know. I don't make the market. I don't dictate where the needle goes. But is that guy worth that much money? That's something for them to decide. But it's weird, man. I wouldn't use to stay ahead of Michigan because you're not ahead of Michigan. You won a national championship. Michigan still owns the rivalry right now. So to get ahead of Michigan, maybe you have to spend more money. Or maybe you have to go to the NFL to get a defensive coordinator to replace Jim Knowles to beat Michigan this year.
It's interesting because Knowles went to Penn State, another rival.
Yeah.
And, Ohio State doesn't have a hard time getting applicants. Obviously, they probably get more than they would like. That's a whole nother subject. But that money, too, they didn't spend on what Knowles wanted, but they got plenty of other guys and they kept their guys. That was the new trend Michigan actually started. Then Ohio State reciprocated, and that's continued on. They didn't lose anybody from the portal. Were you surprised by that?
100%. Absolutely, I was surprised. Because going into the spring portal when it opened, now it opened after Ohio State spring game. So you have your 15 practices, your spring game being the last one, getting to be able to see what guys are, getting the feel of being inside the shoe again. But then after that, these coaches have these one-on-one, those man-to-man real conversations about where you currently stand, where you're going, where you're moving, where you're projecting to be in the upcoming year for you to decide if Ohio State's the right place for you or if you want to go somewhere else to play football. They kept everybody. I thought they would have lost a quarterback or maybe lost a defensive end. I don't know what Ryan Day is preaching right now. Or maybe the brotherhood is so strong that these guys are saying, we want to be a part of Ohio State's chance to do something for the first time in school history, which is win back-to-back national championships, and they're forsaking playing time elsewhere to try to be a part of something special this year at Ohio State. And that's my thought, because it's a quarterback situation. You would expect one of those quarterbacks, either Sand or Keaton-Holmes, which everyone's behind at this point in time, to go to the portal. Because I think whoever's second right now is good enough to start somewhere in college football, 100%. But they kept them. They kept all the offensive linemen, all the D linemen. They kept everybody. I don't know what Ryan Day is doing, man, but he's doing something to keep these guys in-house. And I think that says something about the culture at Ohio State, that there's something special going on right now, that these guys are forsaking more playing time outside of Ohio to stay at Ohio State to maybe do something special this year.
Yeah, I think that Ohio State, if they get the quarterback position right, and that's a big if.
Yeah.
They got the weapons still to be very, very competitive, and they've rebuilt but their portal a little bit. They could be pretty interesting, which brings up the next question. What is next for Ohio State? When we come back, that is the question we're going to ask in this crossover edition of Locked On Buckeyes and Locked On the Portal. All right, Jay, if you had to say right now, if you were, let's put it back. If you were in January, would you say this is where Ohio State was going to be after spring? Like, are you shocked by it, or is this status quo for where you thought it was going to be looking back? Because I'm sure you had projections. Where are we going to be after spring ball and all that? What's your gut tell you?
I would say I would not project Ohio State to be in its current spot right now.
Okay.
If I was thinking back to January, let's just say after the national championship win, let's just go back to that part of the year, because the season went so long this year. I would have thought Ohio State would have lost numerous scholarship guys that could have been rotation pieces in the spring, at the end of spring practice. So it's kind of the conversation we just had about them not losing anybody. I would have expected, like I meant, one quarterback. One of the three quarterbacks is gone. One of your running backs, Donaldson, comes in. Williams-Dixon actually went to the portal, and then he came back. So maybe that says something about the culture. But I would have expected multiple scholarship guys to leave. And that's what I expect every year, honestly, in the spring. I don't care how good spring practice is or how well-attended the spring game is. I expect Ohio State, just like Alabama and Georgia. I don't care the school. I expect you to lose a lot of scholarship guys after spring ball, because the guys that leave, a lot of them are good enough to play somewhere else and start. So I would have projected them to not be where they currently are, which makes me feel a little bit better, a lot better, honestly, about what Ohio State can do this year, because the culture is strong. Ryan Day is fixing some things that he hadn't gotten right, but no, I wouldn't have projected Ohio State being here. Not at all.
Well, they have had an interesting run. And again, I brought it up multiple times already. I'm going to say it again. They didn't lose anybody to the portal in the spring. That is just not normal, man.
Right.
It really, I think it does say something for everything involved. Strength staff, the back office staff. Obviously, they're doing well with NIL, or all the kids wouldn't stay. That's a given. I mean, they got a lot of pieces still coming back that, man, they could start somewhere else. So good for the Buckeyes. How can Ryan Day make this an elite team this year again, like somebody that's feared again? Is there anything different about it, or is it just the mentality? Because like they caught fire in the playoffs. It was like, I didn't see that coming. I know you did. Nobody saw that coming. Like, I thought they'd beat Tennessee, but I didn't think they were. And the way they beat them, I immediately told one of my friends, said, they're winning it.
Yeah.
They're on a mission now. They're going to win it. Like, how do they cultivate that again? Because maybe they add one or two more pieces, but what else do they need to do to catch fire again this next season?
Have that same fire in the regular season. Like you can't
They
wait.
didn't last year.
No, you can't play 12 games. Just kind of go through the motions, walk through the park, and then expect to flip a switch with this team in the playoff and say, "Oh, we're good enough to go ahead and roll through everybody and win the net." You can't do that this year. Last year's team could. They went through a gauntlet.
Yeah.
They also had been seasoned. They had some scars, and so the scars they had even prior to the Michigan loss, those were scars that they were still feeling on the field. Now you lose to Michigan. You're like, what are we doing here? Like, do we want to do this? And they literally had, you talked about that meeting they had, the players only meeting where they were talking, it got real, but that real meeting helped them play the way they did in the playoff. You shouldn't need to have one of those meetings at all this year because you just turn it on. Like, one thing I think is going to benefit Ohio State this year is playing Texas week 1. You're not opening up with the HBCU. They play Grambling State week 2. You're not opening up with Youngstown State. You're playing one of them teams, one of the good teams with a quarterback that is projected to be the number 1 pick next year. I can't go that far. I ain't seen Arch Manning play enough football to make that massive projection. But a lot of people are saying Arch Manning's going to be the number 1 pick in next year's NFL draft. And if you open up week 1 and just show everybody last year wasn't a fluke, we're continuing that fire once again this year, and you show up in the shoe when Arch comes to town and you shut that down, that's a great way to start the season and to get that fire and to get that hunger again. But also, you got to get nasty in the trenches. I think on the offensive line, they're going to be fine. A lot of those guys on the interior got a lot of play last year because of the injuries. It's the D-line, once again, that I'm worried about. Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson Jr., they can be great. I mean, they can be dogs on the field. Caden McDonald, Edric Houston, really good duo in the middle. But what about the 4 guys backing those guys up? I don't know. Now, here's a benefit. This is the portal. You brought in Bo Atkinson from North Carolina in the portal in the spring. And that's one of those guys who's going to shake things up. And I think Ryan Day had to do that right now to remind everybody in there, well, you thought you're going to play a whole lot. I'm bringing this cat in that's played really good in North Carolina, and he's going to come in not to just sit back and watch y'all play. He's coming in to take your playing time. So you have to do everything you can to earn it. That's not just in practice, that's also in the game. So Ryan Day, I think, is very strategically trying to do things right now to light a fire under these guys that sustains all season, starting, and make sure it starts that week 1 game against Texas because that's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, that game will be circled by everybody, I'm sure. That's an interesting matchup just from the history of the two programs. And you throw in 2 quarterbacks that have never started and all this kind of like that's going to be a lot of fun. One last question for you. Can Ohio State win it this next year if they don't get elite quarterback play?
No.
I don't think so because like they had more defensive guys last year. Like if they had a little, not that they really had a lot of off days offensively, but they were so deep up front on the defensive line and stuff. It was hard to run the ball on them. Like even Notre Dame did run the ball on them. Michigan struggled for the most part, to be honest. So I don't think it'll be that way. So you and I both think it's Julian saying to start the year. Do you think he's just going to run with it and that's going to be it? Or you think they'll play more than one guy? I guess that's the sub point. I really don't have an answer. I've asked myself that. I'm not sure.
I hope they don't. I have a hard time understanding. I don't think Ryan Day will. I don't think Ryan Day's a 2 quarterback guy because he's very big on the rhythm and the flow and just the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs of the game, and how a quarterback can not so much ride the wave, but he can figure out how to overcome that obstacle in the game that makes him better throughout the rest of the season. I've never got the idea that Ryan Day is a 2 quarterback system guy. Personally, I have never been a 2 quarterback system guy. I talked about it on Locked on Buckeyes about how Urban Meyer at Florida used Chris Leak and Tim Tebow. That was so weird to think about. You think about now, but Tim Tebow was special. Like Urban Meyer knew Tebow was special, but he also knew it was Chris Leak's team. So he kind of had to use both quarterbacks, and it worked for him. I don't see Keenholz and Sand being that so drastically different that all of a sudden Dave's like, no, we got to use both these quarterbacks because they're so different. No, they're similar. One's more athletic, but I don't think that their athleticism is so drastic like Tim Tebow. If Tim Tebow were to come into Ohio State right now, for you to flashback to when he was a freshman and it's Sayan and Tebow, that's a whole different story. That's two drastically different quarterbacks. Sayan can throw. Tebow can't throw the ball. All he can do is run, but you got a fullback at quarterback. There's so many different things you can do with that offense. But I don't think it's going to be a two-quarterback system. And if it does, Brian, you and I might have a conversation on the show about Ryan Day's decision to use a 2QB system, because not many things can get under my skin like Ohio State losing to Michigan. Like, it's not that deep to me, but it would be really, really bad and eye-opening if Ryan Day decided to make that the move for this year.
You never know. It's college football, Jay. Anything is possible. That's why it's the greatest sport on earth. Mr. Stevens, tell everybody where they can find your work, sir.
Brian, I really enjoyed this, guys. You can follow me on Locked on Buckeyes on YouTube or any audio podcast app out there. Wherever you get the portal, you can find Locked on Buckeyes as well. Follow me on Twitter at jstevens07.
Appreciate it. You can find the Portal Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, you name it. We are everywhere, just like you find Locked on Buckeyes. Please like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star review on Apple. We will see you again soon.